In the early 18th century, the Allegheny Mountains, which stretch from northern Pennsylvania to southern Virginia, were the biggest obstacles to settlers trying to reach Kentucky and the West. But in 1750, an explorer named Dr. Thomas Walker discovered a narrow passageway through the forbidding Alleghenies, a notch between two mountains that's now known as the Cumberland Gap. Today, it lies near where the borders of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia all meet. In 1775, a wealthy businessman named Richard Henderson hired Daniel Boone to forge a trail through the Cumberland Gap. Henderson's plan was actually to create his own colony in Kentucky, which he wanted to name Transylvania. Boone and his men soon arrived here at the Cumberland Gap, axes in hand. They started hacking their way across the mountains, creating a path that would later be known as the Wilderness Road. That path still exists today for those wanting to retrace the journey that thousands of early settlers first took to reach Kentucky. After 2 weeks, Boone and his men finally made it to the other side of the mountains and chose a spot for a new settlement. They called it Boonesboro. Today, a reconstructed fort stands on the same site. Soon, hundreds of pioneers were pouring through the Cumberland Gap, heading up the Wilderness Road and arriving in this frontier outpost. Boone stayed on to protect the settlers from Indian attacks, but one day while hunting, he himself was captured by members of the Shawnee. Held by the tribe's chief Blackfish, Boone quickly discovered that a Shawnee force was planning to attack the Boonesboro settlers. Winter turned to spring, and Boone was unable to warn his companions. Finally, in June, as the Shawnee made their final preparations to lay siege to the fort, Boone made a daring escape. Legend has it he crossed 160 miles of near impassable wilderness in just 4 days to reach Boonesboro before the Shawnee. When the Shawnee finally did attack, the settlers were well prepared and armed. For 10 days, they held their ground until the Shawnee finally gave up and retreated. Boone's real-life exploits were quickly turned into fiction by newspapers and magazines in America and England. In print, he became a larger-than-life hero of the American frontier, leaping off cliffs in his coonskin cap to escape capture by native tribes, and leading hopeful pioneers through dark forests to the light-filled bounty of the West.